Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sacred Ground Community Church and Sangha. I'm Parson Michael, and today is January 19th, 2025. Usually this service we have outdoors for a wild church service, but we've got that polar vortex coming. I don't know if it's quite started yet, but it's getting pretty cold out there here in central Ohio, so we thought it would be prudent to have an indoor service today. So I will ring the bell and invite us to get started. And for those of you who may not be familiar with us, and for those of you who are familiar, the bell is an invitation to presence, an invitation to mindfulness. So when we hear the bell, we're invited to enjoy the sound of the bell. And hopefully the sound is working well. So you can let us know in the comments if it's not. Here's the bell. And I invite you to just notice your body. You might want to wiggle your toes a little bit. You might want to wiggle your fingers, just noticing your body and space. Feel yourself where you're sitting. Think of head over heart, heart over pelvis. Sitting aligned. We sometimes speak of the backbone as like the spiritual superhighway, just letting the energy pass through. I invite you to breathe in and out. Notice if there's some tension. I have tension right now in my hips. So wherever you might have some tension, bring your awareness there. In aware, out, begin to relax. In aware, out, begin to release. Aware, relax, aware, release. Wow, I'm just feeling that sort of just, we're made of water. I'm just sort of letting that water element take over and just sort of feel myself dripping down here, letting gravity, sort of there's a little balance here of sort of awareness in my back, but just letting gravity do its thing too. Aware, relax, aware, release. We are Sacred Ground Community Church and Sangha. We blend East and West and Mother Earth as well. And I got to look for Molly because I might be stepping on her meditation time. But I have to get myself centered, so I have to do that. So this is called, Steve, this is called being married. Shannon knows about this.
Almost 40 years. Wow.
So we try. So welcome everyone. And again, this is part of that, just this try to be playful here, because lightness, we're going to talk about light today. And lightness is, that may not be the best tray. There might be one behind that would be better. I don't know, for Scott. But lightness is key. And we're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about VIDYA, which is seeing or clarity or understanding, and avidya, which is ignorance. And so we'll be talking about that today. As folks probably know, we are a blending of East and West, earth and spirit. So we draw from the beneficial teachings of Buddhism, Christianity, earth-centered spirituality, and we have Bible readings, and we draw from different teachers of East and West, and but almost always we draw from Thich Nhat Hanh, the late Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk, as a principal teacher. So with that, I will pass it on to Miss Ollie. Mm-hmm. So once again, just invite you into presence and joy, and thank you for choosing to be with us. Invite you to let go of whatever you've got going on later today, whatever's going on the next few days, your things that you're concerned about or excited about. Just invite you to be here. That's the invitation, just to be here.
I don't know if we want to ask Scott has a song. It looks like it. I mean, not down to do it right now, but just
yes,
when
okay.
It's time, it looks like. There's a song. I don't know if you want to ask Shannon. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. So I'm going to, for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, or those of you who have joined us before online, I just want to invite you to participate with us if you'd like. There is a live chat feature, and please feel free to add comments. We will do prayers and concerns later. We'll have a time for people to share. But if the Spirit moves you, you're welcome to share there, and I will try to see those and share them with the people that are here with us in Columbus. But we are going to have right now a time of prayer. So I'm just going to have us, again, go to that centered space. And if you want to, you can shut your eyes. You don't need to. Notice your breath again. We gather together on this Sunday morning to uplift the sacred, the mystery, and the holy. We'd gather together on the Sunday morning to breathe together and feel our aliveness. We gather together on this Sunday morning to experience wonder, awe, compassion, lightness, and joy, and probably many other things. We gather together on this Sunday morning to uplift ourselves and others. I have a prayer poem that I'm going to read now. It's got adapted from Meister Eckhart, who lived in the 12 and 1300s, from this book, from Love Poems from God. I'm Daniel Ladinsky's book, Love Poems from God. It's adapted from that. So I have a prayer poem from that. All beings are words of God, God's music and art. You are a word of God. Sacred books we are, for the infinite camps in our soul. We are all words of God. Every act reveals and expands God's being. Remember this: all creatures are doing their best to help birth God in each moment. Can we see it in ourselves? Can we see it in each other? Can we see it in everything around us? We are all words of God. Peace and amen. Do you want me to do the next reading?
Maybe before the reading, we could do the kind of namaste bow to that around us. I could do it, or you could do it. What if you prefer?
That's great. So we will do our namaste bow now to each other. And I'll move the camera over a little bit, so if you want to come and bow to the people. But a namaste bow is just honoring the sacred in each of us and seeing the sacred in each other.
Also do what we do with the outside, a little bit of just sort of honoring the sacred in the earth around us.
We sure can. Do you want me to do that first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't have that in the
I
program.
didn't have that in the program. That's just fine. So we'll start out, actually, I'll ring the bell here in a minute. We'll start out first with honoring the sacred that is around us. So it can be outside, it can be inside, but we'll have a moment that people online or people that hear can voice or just say in their hearts, the sacred, that something sacred that they see around them. And then what we say is they'll say what they see, and then we'll say we honor the sacred in you. And if anybody says anything online, I will read that out loud. So I will ring the bell first, and then we'll have a moment to honor the sacred around us.
Would you show that painting?
Show the painting. Okay, I can, I think.
I've asked Ollie to aim the camera at that painting on the wall. That's a painting from Mill Creek Park in Youngstown, Ohio. It was done by my Aunt Ethel's friend, Mary Villette. And both Ethel and Mary are in the spirit world now. You could still see this. Actually, our daughter found an old postcard from the 40s or 50s that had almost this same image on. That's what she gave me for Christmas. Mm-hmm. But I look at that today, and I give thanks to Ollie too, who just found the exact perfect place to hang it. It's been just in the basement for years, and it just, thinking of my aunt's friend, thinking of my aunt, especially Mary Villette, who did the artwork, thinking of artists doing their art, so much there. We honor the sacred in you. Mm. We have Stacy says, good morning. Happy to be with you. Namaste. We honor the sacred in you. We honor
the sacred in you. And Shannon says, I'm looking at my candle. We got candles around here too. So to candles. We honor the sacred in you.
Shannon bowing in. I am keenly aware as I drove down here and the snow that's been on the ground here in the Columbus area for roughly a week, of all the people that get up every day and make sure that our city and other cities and other towns and communities are safe enough to travel, and to know the difference when it's not going to be safe to travel and cancel school and other things, and the weather people that make every effort to keep us informed. We honor the
sacred in you. Mm.
Scott bowing in. I want to honor the sacred in the sayings in this room. I look at the Thich Nhat Hanh saying behind Ali, compassionate eyes looking at living beings. And then the philosophical question behind Ali that says, why are we here? And that is a question for the ages. We honor the sacred in you.
Show the Thich Nhat Hanh quote right there. Compassionate eyes looking at living beings.
I want to honor him just noticing around. So at Christmas time, we put up this greenery. So there's some right there, a little bit of greenery right there. And but it's all over our house. We put it up at the beginning of December. And then when we take down all our Christmas, we leave that up until the beginning of February. And it's one of my favorite traditions. And I look around, it just brings me joy to see a little bit of earth around us, at least for the next few weeks. So to the pine boughs around us, we honor the sacred in you. So I'm going to have us honor the sacred in each other now. So we can stand up or not. And if you want to bow to the screen, I'll move it a little bit so you can bow. Okay.
Did you ask her? Oh, because she's going to go next. So I'm done.
Ring the bell.
Greetings, everybody. Like my sweatshirt, I know. Like my sweatshirt says, you matter. And the back of the sweatshirt says, you can read it yourself. We all need a reminder of that. And I'll be reading the first reading today from Thay's The Heart of the Buddha's Teaching, page 227, and then 236 and 237. VIDYA means seeing, understanding, or light. Avidya means the lack of light, the lack of understanding, or blindness. Ignorance is avidya, the lack of light. It is connected to deluded mind. Vidya is understanding or wisdom. Vidya is connected to true mind. The presence of light means the absence of darkness. The presence of day means the absence of night. The presence of ignorance means the absence of understanding. The Buddha said, when ignorance comes to an end, understanding arises. Peace and amen.
Our next reading, our second reading, comes from the Gospel of Matthew, and we'll be having the King James Version today. This comes from the Sermon on the Mount, chapter 6, verses 22 and 23. These are the words of Jesus. The light of the body is the eye. If, therefore, thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If, therefore, the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? Do you have a song to share for us, Scott?
An original.
An original song.
Here we go.
This is one of the songs I wrote a year ago, and comes from Michael's teaching on mantras. And a mantra that he was inspired by is, as it was, as it is, as it shall be, sacred world without end. And one of the things this song has a lot going on. It has spiritual practices about breath work, and it also is about oneness. Even though there's dualism in the song and there's dualism in our reading, I was thinking about what to play, and anything that brings intentionality to our being. And that's one of the things that Jesus and the Buddha talk about is putting our eyes fixed on good things. And in Philippians, it says, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Keep on doing these things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, and the God of peace will be with you. So this song is called Mantras. I played it before. Breathing in stillness, breathing out restlessness, breathing in numbness, breathing out scarcity, as it was, as it is, as it shall be. Sacred world without end. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. Breathing in love, breathing out hate, breathing in peace, breathing out strife, as it was, as it is, as it shall be. Sacred world without end. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. Breathing in oneness, breathing out tribalism, breathing in joy, breathing out sorrow, as it was, as it is, as it shall be. Sacred world without end. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. As it is, as it was, as it shall be. Sacred world without end.
Yeah, got Shannon. I'm gonna get you. That's how I'm feeling. Thank you, Scott. Wow. Thank you. We are at our time now for joys, concerns, prayers that can be spoken aloud, that can be typed, that can be in our hearts. So I'm going to ring the bell, have us breathe for a moment, and then if we'd like, we can voice our prayers, concerns, and joys.
Shannon bowing in. I am really grateful for the four immeasurables in this time of uncertainty, especially with a new administration coming in tomorrow. And if you are not familiar with the four immeasurables, they are loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and joy. I did not know, I didn't know anything about Buddhism until 5 or 6 years ago. That's what I stick with more than anything else, are the four immeasurables. they've really helped me to not get caught up so much in the moment, in my emotions, in my thoughts. That's never going to go well. I've really learned that for me. So that's what I'm very joyful about. I still am, as are many people, concerned about the Los Angeles area, both personally and in general. Our son and his wife, Karina, live 3 miles from the Eaton fire. And while they have been safe and they've told us not to worry, and they've told us they'll let us know if things change, and the kids are back in school throughout LA, most of LA, and our son is a teacher. They have friends who have lost everything. I have an aunt that lives there who has friends who have lost everything. And it's made me realize that, yes, I can think that I'm being deeply compassionate and one with people who are suffering. It's always harder to do, and I need to work harder at doing it when I don't have a personal stake in it. Without letting it get the best of me. So, Shannon bowing out.
Online, Shannon says, for people who have winter depression.
Yes.
And Martha says, feeling joy and love for this group. Thank you. Shannon says, a joy going to the Born to Shine dance. Stacy says, joy for gathering together remotely in the cold weather. She's got some emojis. I'm feeling more connection to those who only want loving kindness and are spreading this as they spread their light.
Scott bowing in. A joy is my mom is doing well. She has a lot of good support and good people around her that she can draw on. So that is a joy. And I have another joy, which is I got together with a chaplain last week that works for a different company. He used to be a pastor in Marysville. I think I talked about him before. And we had lunch last week, and that went really well. So we're going to do it again. A couple concerns. Well, I guess one is just a hope, and then the other one's a concern. Just for Jane and her family right now. This holiday season's been hard. And then a concern is, this isn't really a concern, it's a hope. I've been getting a fire in my belly to start a sacred ground in Marion. I have a coworker that's not churched. She used to be, and she's looking for an alternative. So I want to meet with her and ask her what she's looking for. And it'll be very similar to Sacred Ground, Wild Church. I just want to see, I'm trying to get a pulse for the area. There's a church on every corner in Marion. Pentecostal churches are doing well, but they tend to be very conservative. But they are doing good with the impoverished in the Marion area. There are people that are alternative, but they're underground. And that's kind of the people that I've been praying for and thinking about.
Hmm. For all our prayers, spoken and unspoken, we lift them up to the great sacred, the great mystery, to our connections. May they add to the good. Peace and amen.
I'm sorry. Unpack the bell. Invite us into mine. Bless you. Invite us to enjoy the sound of the bell in this present moment. It's funny, we're all made differently. I know it's a good thing. The way I'm made, for whatever reasons, I'll pick up the Bible and I'll start to read it, and I'll just be really intrigued by some words. So those words in Matthew chapter 6, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. I don't know how much time I've spent thinking over those couple of sentences, but I have. And I hope I never come across as, oh, here's the one meaning that everybody should draw from any text. I believe in the value of multiple meanings. I learned this long ago as a storyteller. At some point it occurred to me when I was telling a story, if I was telling a story and there were 45 people in the room, then there were 46 stories. The one I was telling, and then the other 45 that were being heard. Because as I tell a story, it might remind you of your Uncle Freddie, or it might lead you to this memory from what happened last week at work. And so every story has its own connections. And I had this recently happen. I probably have mentioned many times here, in many of my spiritual books, I write in the margins, and sometimes I'm just overwhelmed with how amazing something is. And it's happened quite often where I'll read something and there's not much of a reaction from me. And sometimes I'll say, for whatever reason, I'm going to go back 3 days later, read those 2 pages again. And then I'm like, wow. I had the opposite happen just a couple of days ago, where I read these pages and I had all these notes on the side. And then I went back and I read, and I was like, And I just find it fascinating, the human condition. So the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, not a word used often in the Bible, single. And I've thought of it sometimes in terms of almost like a Japanese tea ceremony. If you think of it, whatever thought you may or may not have of a Japanese tea ceremony, but if you think of a person in a tea ceremony picking up that cup and bringing it to their mouth or pouring from that pot, there's such a singular focus in that moment. And then I think of the light, and I think of it two ways. I think of it, one, in terms of sort of this glowing, almost spiritual brightness, but then I also think of a light rather than a heaviness, or even a light in terms of a playfulness. You might not think of that in Japanese tea ceremony, but I certainly associate mindful presence with lightness in a lot of different ways. And then I was thinking of something else. A friend of mine said to me many years ago, this friend might be watching today. He said, we were talking and I was telling about my background, and I studied perceptual psychology under the late, great Dr. Pete Beckett at Youngstown State University many moons ago, and the early 80s. And one of the things that, I mean, you all know is most of us have two eyes, right? and yet we see one image. And if we close one eye and then close the other, close one eye, close the other, we actually will see, oh wait, there's two disparate images. But we take the two and we bring them together as one. And not only do we bring them together as one, but it gives us something else that in perceptual psychology we call depth perception. And it crossed my mind, if we can take two disparate views and bring them together as one, perhaps we get more depth. Perhaps we get the ability to perceive more deeply. And we live in a world where it's very common to hear people say of some other people, I just don't understand them. That's fair. It's fine. People don't understand each other, but let's continue to hold the aspiration. And so what happens if we can bring our views together? What happens if we can have that singular mind? A friend of mine said, a friend of mine from the coffee shop, she said several months ago, she said, boy, I wish America wasn't so focused on sports. Now, I will actually probably have a hoarse voice by late tomorrow night because I will be screaming at the TV, rooting for the Buckeyes. Now, in terms of a little bit of non-dualism, my dad up in heaven will be definitely cheering on the Fighting Irish. So, so that's okay. And for me, it's a game, and enjoy it, throw myself into it, and then let it go. Right. So that's fun for me. But what my friend was saying, and I think this friend's probably in their late 20s, maybe early 30s, but she was saying, you know, we treat everything as a competition. And she was particularly thinking in terms of politics and in terms of culture. And I think, that race for who's going to win the office, that is sort of like who's going to win and who's going to, but the thing that we seem to have forgotten is that when the race is over, we're actually supposed to then be playing on the same team. And it should be more like a family. And families don't always agree. We have different perspectives. We have different points of view. But we have some sort of shared vision. And we're trying to move forward with that. And so I find myself just thinking about all that with VIDYA. And if you want to remember, not that you need to remember any of these words, but I like, just as an invitation towards growth, if you think of VIDYA as seeing, and I don't know that these are the same roots, maybe they are, video, VIDYA. And avidya, always means not. So avidya, not seeing, which is ignorance or blindness. And again, as I speak of layers, I don't think it's any accident that we have story after story after story of Jesus healing the blind so that they now see. So that's an invitation toward lightness. And I'm not really interested in heaviness. There's bad stuff going on. I mean, we're dealing with big problems. From my perspective, climate change is a base problem that we have to deal with. And there's all sorts of problems in our families, and there's accidents, and there's cancers, and there's mortality, and there's fires, and there's wars. There are a lot of heavy things. And at the same time, I'm thinking of right upstairs on my shelf, the Book of Joy, Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Honoring things in the seriousness they deserve, but also where can we bring some lightness? And where can we bring light? And can we be beings of light? It seems to me one of the strongest things, or I don't know if one of the strongest, one of the many strong things that Jesus says when he says, when our eyes are evil, when we're in that us, them, we're full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? I want to say F that darkness. I want to say F that effing darkness. Because it's useless to me. It's absolutely useless to me. If I want to see a better world, if I want there to be a better Michael in the world, if I want there to be bridges, if I want a better world for our kids and our grandkids, that lightness is going to be essential. And it's going to be essential, I think, that I figure out how to take those two eyeballs and see singularly. Felt like a damn serious ending for a guy talking about lightness. Oh, well. Non-dualism. Oh, goodness me. I like to be a minister who might say damn during his Dharma talk. We're going to have a few minutes of silence, and maybe we can, I don't know what we can aim this at, Ollie.
The flower
At the
and
flower?
and the fern.
Yeah, that sounds, oh, the flower and the fern and the candle. I love it. Okay. So we're going to take 3, 4, 5 minutes and just have silence. You might, if you're here with us, and thank you all for coming out in the cold, who have come out and joined us here from, everybody came like a significant distance. There's a lot of humans live near us, but everybody, most people are from out of the county here. That's all right. No, you're in the county. Yes. Yeah.
Barely.
Barely. So I don't know. Oh, a prophet in his own village. You know the story. Anyway. We're going to take a few minutes, and you might want to sit by a window and just kind of, or maybe you want to go outside and just look to nature. You might want to look at that candle or something even within yourself. And we're just going to take 4 or 5 minutes of that silence, and then we'll come back and we'll have an opportunity for people who want to share with us online, and also for folks here if they would like to share. So I'll invite the bell to sound. I'll move this, and then we'll take 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll invite the bell to sound and start again. So thank you for being with us, and I encourage you to stay, because oftentimes, no pressure on anyone here or anyone out there, but the sharing is often quite lovely. And none of us needs to sound wise. I don't want to make that weird for anybody, but it's nice that we try to create the space for everyone's voice, or at least all the human voices. So, Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for showing up. I feel very fortunate. I feel very fortunate that I get to be here with you. And I hope that together we can add to the good. Enjoy the bell. And from the bell, we'll go to the silence. We'll be back in about 4 or 5 minutes. I'll invite us into a time of sharing now, here in the room and here with our larger long distance online community. And I'll invite folks to, we certainly might share something that's painful for us, but our aspiration, whether it's through our listening or through our sharing, is to ultimately water beneficial seeds. And just a reminder, I know there's a lot that's heavy on our hearts, but how to speak and with that non-dualism to the degree that we can. I think that's, I think it's William James who said sometimes the speaking precedes the thinking. And whatever we're aspiring towards. And I for one am aspiring towards non-dualism. I ain't there, and I hold that as an aspiration for our community. So, but with that, I'll do the bell one more time. And if someone would like to speak here in the circle, you're welcome to bow in. You can give a wave of kind of letting us know whether you'd prefer to be online or not to be online, to be or not to be. I think Billy said once a long time ago. And folks here, you can share in the comments or the chat, and we will we'll share those aloud as well. If you happen to be watching this as a recording, you're welcome to share in the comments. And obviously, if you're watching the recording, we can't add that to the live conversation, but hopefully others will have an opportunity to see your comments as well. Again, the bell. Gratitude for the bodies, minds, and spirits that we bring to this moment.
Stop bowing in. It's funny because when Michael was sharing his Dharma talk, when it came to the national championship football game, I was thinking the same thing. Now, one of the things I don't like about where college football is going is NIL and the players are being paid, which means that some schools have more money than others. And I love my beloved Buckeyes, and I feel like they're buying a national championship with the talent that they've acquired over the past year. I love Notre Dame because of their coach, Marcus Freeman, who's a young Jim Tressel and played for Jim Tressel, who's from Youngstown. And so I'm torn between a team that doesn't have the best talent but is well coached, and my beloved Ohio State Buckeyes, which is my alma mater. So tomorrow night I'm going to be rooting for both teams. And when it comes to oneness, I don't care who wins. I just want a good, clean competition where they're all brothers playing a game. Mm-hmm. Now, going with light, yesterday was the feast of Saint Athanasius, who was one of the crafters of the Nicene Creed. But one of the books that he's written that is well known in the Orthodox community and the Catholic community, not as much with us, is the biography about Saint Anthony. Saint Anthony was one of the first desert fathers. And one of the sayings of Saint Anthony, which goes with the Dharma talk, is always have God before your eyes wherever you go. Mm-hmm. And so much of what I'm learning in my own spiritual journey is everything is intentional. Where do I set my intention during the day? Is it on the divine or is it on myself? And I've been struggling with some arthritis in my hip, and some days the pain is just, it's all I can think about. And I know that there's those that struggle with depression, and that's all they can think about. But I think the light calls me to something greater to put my intention. Just like St. Anthony, who had his own demons, his own struggles out in the desert, he always had his eyes before God. And coming in, I need to do the same thing. And one of the reasons I'm wearing this hat that says "Fear not," is for those that are worried about the next 4 years, not to fear, but just have our intention on what Shannon shared earlier about the four, can't think of the last
Four
one.
immeasurables.
The four immeasurables. Compassion, loving kindness, joy, and there's one other.
Equanimity.
Equanimity. Thinking about those four things brings wholeness.
So I'm going to read some of the comments from online. Mark says, enjoyed the quiet calm of looking out at our backwoods as the snow is coming down and appreciating this time to be grounded with all of you. Stacy says, poured a cup of warming ginger tea in ceremony of peace through the world. And to those who have suffered loss in the fires or illness or sadness. Martha says, watching the snow fall on the bamboo in the garden, such beauty from God. Ollie bowing in. I just want to acknowledge, I guess we all feel this, but of the power of silence together. Just sitting here in silence and meditation together, and with all of you, I just felt the power of that, of just breathing, really trying not to think, and just be. So I'm glad we had that opportunity. So Ollie bowing out.
During the 4 or 5 minutes, I chose to go outside and just stood on the porch. And it's about 20 degrees outside, but there's a wind chill that makes it colder. So, and we have a couple of sour cherry trees in the front yard and an oak tree. And of course, at this time of year in Ohio, they're bare. And even the oak tree, I was surprised, has lost its leaves, which sometimes they don't in the winter. Maybe it's this particular type of oak, I don't know. But what popped into my head was I haven't read the book, but the film, The Curious Life of Benjamin Button. Some of you may have seen it with Brad Pitt, where he's born as an old man and he grows younger across time. When Ollie and I saw that movie years ago at the theater, coming home, I just started crying. And I was crying because the magic of that film is what we live. We just do it the opposite direction. If you tell my 3-year-old granddaughter, show her a picture of me at age 10 and say, this is Papa, that's absurd. It's crazy. And if you look at those cherry trees out there and you say, you know, in a few months, I predict they're going to have leaves, and then they're going to have little round red cherries on them that'll be quite tasty to you humans. That's freaking ridiculous. There is absolutely no way that anyone should be making such an insane prediction about this stark, dead-looking stick sticking with all these branches sticking up in our front yard. That's insane. And I feel like the trees invited me to be careful not to dismiss what is possible. I was listening to, you can find audio of the late Reverend Howard Thurman online, his sermons, and he gave one on democracy. And is like in the 1950s. And he said, well, if you believe you live in a world where nothing changes, then there's no chance for democracy. He says, but if you believe in a world where everything is dynamic and creative and continuously changing, then there's a real shot for democracy. Because that's what we're always in. That changing towards. And maybe this is related. Ollie and I saw the Tom Hanks film about Mr. Rogers. And we learned afterwards that one of Mr. Rogers' favorite actors was Tom Hanks, which is super cool. And as many of you know, Mr. Rogers, there in Pittsburgh, was a Presbyterian minister. And this was his vocation. This was his work. This was his ministry. Though he didn't talk about God or Jesus, he's just doing it. And if I recall correctly, he was inspired as a young minister coming home and seeing this new thing called television and seeing the crap that was pouring out of it into people's living rooms and saying, there's other possibilities. And that all flashed through my mind as Ollie read Mark's sharing. And Mark shared about us being connected here together. Because there's a lot of junk on this internet. And there's a lot of good things too. But it's nice to think that maybe sometimes we can be part of that good.
Shannon bowing in. Thank you all for being here today. As I've said before, I really look forward to Sunday morning in a way that I haven't maybe all my life. As I mentioned before, I've really benefited deeply and will continue to benefit deeply from the four immeasurables. I've been focusing on the last couple days on equanimity. I have to look that definition up, that word, a lot. Not so much anymore, but I always thought it had a negative connotation about equanimity. It's not negative at all. And it's so enriching to me. I've mentioned before, and I will not pronounce it right, Vipassana meditation. It's close enough that my son Henry introduced me to last summer. And the image that he didn't want me to get fixated on, and I don't, but I do like it, is the dove, and the one wing is equanimity and the other wing is awareness, because to me they're so intertwined. If you're practicing equanimity, you can't be aware, because if you're always grasping happiness, that's grasping, that's not helpful. You can have happiness right here. You don't need to be grasping happiness in the future. just like you don't want to avoid unhappiness. That's aversion and grasping, and that always gets me into trouble. And during the service today, I was thinking about light and dark, and I've mentioned before more than once, because Martin Luther King is one of my greatest role models my whole childhood. Having been in the first grade class in Mecklenburg County and Charlotte Mecklenburg schools to integrate. That really said it for me. Being in a classroom with children who didn't look like me, who didn't have a background like me, it was just the greatest gift I could have gotten. And so Dr. King talks about light and darkness and love and hate. I was thinking just today, though, about a little different nuance to it. Is I thought of it as a light and dark, and then you think, well, how do we get to hate? We get to hate because of worry. At least for me, that's the nugget that seems like, how could I avoid worrying? But the Dalai Lama talks about, why worry if there's something you can do to improve a situation? Why worry if there's nothing you can do to improve the situation? And I was really focused on that driving down here today, because as I've said before with everybody, I dance Sunday mornings before I come down here. And I've discovered a new for me artist on Spotify that I absolutely love. And his name is Aaron Taylor. And he's got a song that I've listened to now 5 or 6 times, had it on today. It's called Easy. And he's got this line, I don't worry about everything going on, 'cause worry don't change everything going on. And I just love that. It's like, yes, because that's what the Dalai Lama was saying to me. So thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for being here. Shannon bowing out.
Did you check on it anymore? Thank you all. Thank you all. Peace.
So I have a few announcements. Our next round of online Bible study will begin online only, but on Wednesdays at 4, starting February 5th. And this winter and spring, we'll be mindfully meditating on the Gospel of Mark and the Psalms 123 to 138. So that'll begin on February 5th. Next Sunday, January 26th, will be our Wild Church in person only. But then we're going to be off 2 Sundays from now, February 2nd. And then we'll be back together both online and in person on February 9th. So February 9th is next Sunday. If you're online, you can join us. January 26th, you can join us here in Columbus. You could go to theholynow.org to learn more about us, to contact us, to get on our mailing list, to donate and support us and our work and our mission. And we invite you to set up a monthly donation for the new year. And also, we have sent out people that donated in 2024. You should have received an email. If you did not receive an email with your donations, please let us know. We sent those out this past week. Okay, so I think those are the announcements. Thank you all for joining us. And Michael will send us out in prayer.
Once more, I'll invite the bell to sound. And I'll invite myself and you, if you wish, into presence. Oh, great Spirit, it is impossible to see all that comes together here in this moment. The pine boughs, the flower behind me, the cherry and oak trees outside, the lovely people in this room, the incredible folks who are joining us online, the ancestors of this land, the ancestors of each of us, the hopes, the aspirations, the fears, the anxieties, the immense possibilities, the many dualisms within each of us, the oneness that we sometimes get little glimpses of. The words that come from the late Thich Nhat Hanh, the words that come from 2,000 years ago. We give thanks. Help us to go forward. Buddha, Jesus, Mother Earth, continue to invite us into cures for our blindness, into VIDYA, into filling ourselves with light and lightness and possibility. Help us to put our two eyes in focus and help us to unite the various points from which we view into one picture of possibility. And may we know that behind what is seen, in the unseen, there are so many leaning in with us. Desmond Tutu's with us. Your great-grandparents are with us. Thich Nhat Hanh is with us. The Buddha is with us. The author of the Gospel of Matthew is with us, and Jesus is with us. And you who are beyond all names that are within us, around us, everywhere. Keep moving us towards tears. Tears of sorrow that allow us to feel the pain and have compassion for others. And tears of joy that allow us to feel the connectedness that remind us of our oneness. In gratitude. Peace and amen, and amen, and amen. Thanks, y'all.